Do you not want to hear me talk about a father and a daughter? No, I want you to talk about me and mommy. I know, baby girl, I love you too. Okay. So, last night, chapter not up yet. This morning when I first checked, chapter not up yet. I get back from walking her, chapter is up. Oh, good. So, time to review chapter 1101 for One Piece. So we get a couple of covers. So the cover of the actual Shonen Jump is Luffy on a snowboard with One Piece spray painted on the bottom. That looks pretty cool. And then Nami and Chopper are there as well, all looking nice, and Nami and in their snow snowboarding gear. I don't do sports. It's like it's snowboarding, right? It's not skiing. I know skiing. It's not skiing. Don't ask me about sports. I get confused very easily. So we get to see that, and then for the cover page for the actual chapter, we have the Vegapunks and then Vegaforce 1 in the background. So we have Shaka on the be on the left side of the screen, and then York on the other side to kind of represent the desires of Logic and Desire. And then of course we see Atlas and Pythagoras and Lilith and Edison. We already kind of saw what Lilith's color scheme was going to be like from the anime trailers that have been up. So I'm pretty sure Oda probably gave them the color schemes ahead of time for them to work with. And then we see, big Vegaforce 1 in the background. That's all blue. And then, of course, they have Vegapunk in the middle with his apple head and everything, which is apt because we see later on in this chapter that he has, in fact, made, if not all of the clones, at least some of them, considering he has the apple head later on when we see him in the chapter. So we get this nice big color spread, which is very nice. And we see how very skin-tight Lilith's bodysuit is, which I'm sure makes a lot of guys happy, and girls. Yeah. And we get a whole bunch of different color schemes on them. Edison is kind of green. Pythagoras seems to have a more red color scheme. Atlas has one half of her hair is pink and the other half is white. And her costume kind of reflects that a little bit. So a little bit of like Harley Quinn stuff going on there. For a little bit of that. York has the blonde hair and seems to have more of a purplish outfit. Lilith also has blonde hair, but it's a different color of blonde. It looks a little bit more orangish. And then Shaka looks like he's going to have like this kind of dark bluish green coat, which is going to look kind of nice once we get to see that animated. So we pick up pretty much where the last chapter left off, where we saw Kuma making his way to Fuchsia Village on Dawn Island. So what we see is we get the Oda box that says, or the narrator box that says, 3 years ago, Mount Corbo, Kingdom of Goa, East Blue, which is where Luffy's hometown is. It's just, Fuchsia Village is just on the other side of Mount Corbo. It's a very remote village. And of course now the dog is here. And we see Luffy is training. He is doing his Gamu Gamu no Axe, which is a move that he uses to finish off Arlong in Arlong Park during that fight. That's even kind of somewhat referenced in a moment when we have Luffy talking. Bear in mind, Ace has been gone about 2 years, I believe, at this point in time. So Luffy's been training on his own for about 2 years. And so Luffy's, kind of just been training as much as he can, fighting the animals that are in the jungle and everything like that. The name of the chapter is Dear Bonnie, which is very poignant considering throughout this chapter we see Kuma writing different letters to Bonnie and everything like that, so she knows how he feels. So we get that, and as I said, we see Luffy training, and we also see a bunch of the animals just kind of watching as Luffy's training, and they're just kind of scared. They may also just be scared of Kuma as well because he's there. And we see Kuma having this flashback to what would be happening in the Goa Kingdom during the time frame when the Goa flashback would have happened, when Luffy, Ace, and Sabo and the ASL flashback happened. And we have the two of them talking, and Kuma's like, Dragon, You seem familiar with this island. Not only that, but when I went to stretch my legs earlier, I found a remote village on the outskirts. There was a young boy there, and the dragon probably just kind of growls at Kuma. And we see him walking away from Kuma, and I was like, if you keep talking about this, you may as well kill me yourself. And Kuma's like, wait, what? And Kuma's like, what do you mean? And Dragon's like, a child is their parents' weakest spot. And we have this like realization hit Kuma. Now bear in mind, this is before he had Bonnie. This is possibly I believe, what if this landed before Ginny was captured? I don't remember exactly. I think we figured that out before the Goa Kingdom thing happened. Just after Ginny was captured, I don't remember, but Kuma doesn't seem to be in a very reckless state of mind at this point in time, so I'm not sure. But he's like, I'm sorry, I'll forget what I saw. So this is where we get the confirmation that this is how that Kuma knows that Luffy is Dragon's son, because, and it also kind of shows a little bit of insight on Dragon for the fact that he, he's probably come here before. We get mentions from Ivankov, of course, and that Dragon used to look always towards the east most of the time, and that's where Ivankov was like, well, do you have family in the east? And this is before they knew that Dragon was Garp's son, because that's not revealed to the world until Marineford, and I don't think Dragon told anyone about that. Anyone about Garp being his father, and he definitely didn't tell anyone that he had a son. Kuma just happened to figure that out. I'm assuming Kuma looked at the village, and then saw Luffy running around the village, and everything, and that led to him, figuring out that the boy seems kind of familiar. It's just like, okay, yeah. So we have Kuma remembering that, and then going forward back to where we have this part of the flashback, so the flashback within a flashback, and Luffy's like, Kuma's like watching from the side as Luffy's like talking to himself. He's like, what an awesome finishing move. I'll save it for when I'm up against a super strong enemy after I set sail and get my crew. I gotta be ready for when someone tries to take them away. I won't ever let that happen, but if anyone tries to, bam, blam, I'll give him a Gamu no axe to the face. Pretty cool, right? And we get the Oda box, Luffy, Monkey D. Luffy, age 16. So this is about a year before he's going to set sail, somewhere within that year time frame before he sets sail. We don't get a lot of flashbacks to when Luffy is 16. We mostly got, when Ace left, and then cut to when Luffy left. So there's like 3 years there where Luffy's on his own, and he just spends more time training and everything like that because he wants to get stronger, so that way he has better mastery of his powers. And then of course this leads to him developing a bunch of these different techniques that he has by the time that he's fighting against Buggy and Alvida and Kuro and Krieg and then Arlong and everything like that in the East Blue. And then once he gets to the Grand Line, then he has to start kind of upping his game and stuff like that for when he has to fight. Like, Wapol was pretty easy to fight and everything like that, but when he has to fight Crocodile and then later on fight Inaru and everything like that. And then eventually learn Haki and everything like that. But we see, Luffy training here, and we also see the other animals in the background that have like little bumps on their heads from where Luffy's probably fought them. And they're just like, oh, and he's like, oh, don't worry, I won't eat wimps. Which is, I guess, a callback to the fact that on Ruskaina, Luffy kind of befriended a bunch of the animals that were on Ruskaina, because he was like, well, I guess I kind of made them my friends, so I can't really eat them now. So I guess that's kind of a callback to that. So, and of course, if anyone tries to take my crew members away, that's, double reference to, or several references to when, Arlong, when Nami leaves to go back to Arlong, and then they go after her, when Robin gets captured by the world government, and everything within his lobby, and then when they go save Sanji from, Whole Cake and everything like that from Big Mom. So there's, some comparisons there that can be said, that kind of, we see that determination in Luffy already and everything. And And then Kuma gets a call on the Den Mushi, and he has to pop himself away and everything. And Luffy's like, who's there? And he's like, huh, weird. What was that feeling just now? It gave me the chills. I bet there's still some tough opponents around here. I'm going to whoop them all before I leave. So, you know, it's like Luffy, it's implied that Luffy just spent the last 3 years, you know, between the time when Ace left and when he left, just like training and fighting against all these different animals that were in the forest. And some of that, I mean, Luffy is pretty good at becoming friends with different animals and stuff like that, barring up to when he wants to try to eat them. Or chasing Chopper around the castle with Sanji, which kind of falls under the trying to eat them category, I guess, until he figured out what Chopper was. And he's just like, oh, you're cool. You're going to join my crew now. I don't care that you're a doctor. Yes, join my crew. Oh, you're a doctor? Even better. Just, come on. So I don't think that I don't know if like Luffy going like, that gave me chills. I don't know if that's supposed to be a reference to like hockey developing earlier in Luffy, but I mean, like, I guess it would make sense to like maybe plant this tiny, I guess, retroactively plant this seed here that maybe Luffy has some bit of hockey at this point in time, or some reference to the voice of all things, because during Orange Town, when he sits and talks to Chow Chow, that later on ends up being a reference to the voice of all things, because Luffy can understand Chow Chow. So that might be like a slight reference to that. So it may also just be Kuma just gives off enough of this vibe that Luffy's like, oh, that didn't feel good, type of a thing. So we have that. So then we cut to Kuma, and where we have Kuma getting his orders, and the Den Mushi is like, some pirates fled after raiding a nearby merchant ship. Your orders are to blow those lowlifes all out of the water. And we see Kuma's ship show up at what would be the merchant ship. And the merchants are telling him, they came out of nowhere. And he's just like, we need to get the wounded to the nearest hospital. And they're like, okay. And again, it's just the Den Mushi. Kuma, come in. What are you doing? So Kuma is prioritizing the safety of the people on the merchant ship before he goes after the goods, which is very much in line with what Kuma would generally do. And he has no reason to hurt the merchants that are on the ship. He's there to help them. So he takes care of that, and we see him again talking to the merchants, and he's like, I'll go on ahead with them, and the rest of you should follow us soon. Follow us as soon as you can. And the merchants are just like, thank you so much. We thought we weren't going to make it. So Kuma's taking care of them and sending them off to go to the hospital. He probably like took care of getting rid of any of the fires that were on their ship or anything like that as well. And he's sending them off. And again, we have the Den Mushi. Kuma respond immediately, because Kuma's like kind of not quite following orders directly. He went to check on the merchant ship before he went to go after the pirates. Then he goes after the pirates, and he's just like, turn yourselves in. And they're like, wait, we didn't mean anything by it. We'll give everything back. Everybody, fork over all your loot. It ain't worth our lives. So again, it's like they're being terrified by Kuma because of his reputation as this warlord of the sea and everything like that, and being very obedient to the government. So we're getting that shown there and everything, and they're just like, oh, screw it, this is not, whatever we stole is not worth our lives. Give all of it back, and maybe we'll get spared. Kuma may have spared them and then just told the government that he blew up their ship or something like that. I don't know. And then, of course, we have him writing a letter. Dear Bonnie, the world is full of beauty that can't be captured in photos or picture books. I long to see your bright, smiling face as you experience such wonders for yourself. And we get this gorgeous view of probably the sunset with like Kuma on the ship, with the ship floating by and everything like that. Similar to some of the different views we would get of the Sunny or the Mary at times in One Piece, and either in the openings or in the credits and everything like that, where we get those, which are nice. Again, it's like Kuma is trying to, you know, he's sending these letters. We learn that Bonnie is not getting the letters, unfortunately, but he's sending these letters in the hope that Bonnie will get them and read them, and he will at least be able to give her some form of a connection to him. So she doesn't forget how much he loves her and cares about her and everything like that. And we cut to the Sorbet Kingdom. And Bonnie is just waiting in the church, and there's like, is it here yet? 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 And it's again, it's like the child, like, are we there yet? Are we there yet? Are we there yet? Are we there yet? Get that from my nephew every now and then when we're in the car on a long trip. Yeah, I was that kid, I'm sure, but I don't remember. And she's just like, she's looking through the letterbox at the church, wanting there to be a letter that comes through, so that way she can read it, and that way she knows, because like Kuma promised to send her letters and everything like that. And we see Gorgo, I don't remember, the fisherman guy, Gorgoro, whatever, Goyo, whatever, him, and he's like, I'm sure he's very busy with work. That or the news coups keep messing up. And Bonnie's like, but Daddy said he'd write a whole bunch of letters. And then we have Connie going, now, dear, letters have to go on a long trek of their own, you know. One will turn up sooner or later, Bonnie, you'll see. And everything like that. So we see that Bonnie is not alone in the church again. Yeah, they have Alpha out there and the others guarding her, quote unquote, and caring for her and everything. And Connie is still out in the church to see Bonnie, as are a bunch of the others from the village and everything like that, or from the kingdom, are allowed to come in and see Bonnie and everything. So Bonnie is not alone. And everything. So we have that, and then we cut outside where we see a news coup drop the paper and the letter. So I'm assuming either the world government may have a deal with the World Economic Times, where they will, if there's certain stamps on an envelope or something like that, that if the news coups bring them back, then you're supposed to send them to the other address on the envelope. So they get it in one paper, one news coup brings it back, and then wherever it's supposed to go, another news coup takes it when they leave to go take the papers on the next route, type of a thing. That might be something that's going on, because I don't know if this same news coup that we saw Kuma give the letters to would have flown all the way from the East Blue to the South Blue. I'm blanking on, well, either the red line or the Grand Line would have been in the middle of it, so I'm not sure exactly there. But the birds may be able to navigate it better than humans could without having a log pose or anything like that. So we have that. We see it land. We see Alpha is out there, the hello nurse. And she picks it up and she's like, another heartwarming letter. And she gives them the paper to send in to Bonnie, but the letter is not there. And, Bonnie is like trying to be really happy, and then it's just like, no, it's just the morning paper. And she's like, pooh, which is adorable. And then we cut outside and we see Alpha just ripping up the letters and everything like that. And yes, I'm aware of the fact that a lot of people pointed out the fact that for the pronunciation, Alpha would be Alufa, as in like Khalifa, type of a similarity here. And I'm going to pull that up in a second. Just like another one. Yes, how many does this make? He's sending around 10 letters, 10 a month. So that's a fair few. How's he even finding so much to write about? To Bonnie. How mushy can you get? And we see her just tearing up the letters and dropping them into a little bin that she's probably going to burn. So a lot of people were pointing out the fact that because Khalifa and Alufa, or Alpha, for the way that it would be pronounced in Japanese, sound very similar, and also Alpha looks a lot like Khalifa. They may end up giving Alpha a different hair color than Khalifa, just so you can differentiate the two a little bit. But I'm not sure yet, since we don't know what her color scheme is going to be yet. But a lot of people are like, well, Khalifa is the daughter of Latchkey, who is this former member of CP9 that was at O'Hara when it blew up, along with Spondine and everything, when they did the buster call on O'Hara. So there is that connection there, but and we know that Khalifa was raised to be an assassin, so if she had a sister who was also raised to be an assassin, but maybe Khalifa ended up being the better of the two, she's the one that ended up getting to join CP9 and get this type of a mission, as opposed to Alpha, who Alpha was maybe not as highly skilled, but still just wants to prove herself. And she seems to have a bit more of a vendetta against this. I mean, I can understand her having to have not let Bonnie get the letters, but maybe not like just destroying them. Maybe, you know, reading them to make sure there's not like proprietary information in it that Kuma's not supposed to tell Bonnie or something like that. Like, that's generally what would happen. By the way, it is a federal offense to open someone else's mail and know that you are doing it. Accidentally is one thing, and then if you stop and you give it back to them, or figure out that it's not yours and you give it back to them, then that's fine. But like proprietary, you're not really supposed to do that. Generally, you're not supposed to do that. But Alepha just seems to have this like disdain look on her face, and I'm just like, do you have your own daddy issues? Was Khalifa the favorite daughter? Is that why you have issues with this, for Kuma showing so much affection to Bonnie and everything like that? Is that where your problem is? And it's like, well, that's very much a possibility there. That Khalifa was the much more favored daughter and the much more talented of the two. Maybe when it came to learning the 6 powers, maybe when it came to gathering intelligence and going undercover and everything like that, because we know at this point in time, Khalifa during this time frame would have been undercover at Water 7 as Iceberg's secretary, along with Lucci and Kaku and Blumenau all there as well. So maybe Alpha is just like, well, maybe if I can prove myself on this mission, then maybe I can get promoted to CP9. Or maybe I can even go to CP0 and prove that, you know, CP0 and prove that I'm better than this. And all of this stuff. So maybe she's got a little bit of that going on in her head. But she's like ripping up the letters and putting them into this little bucket thing that's probably designed to like burn the letters at some point in time. Because we see a fair few built up there. It could just be a trash can that they'll end up burning the stuff in later just to make sure that nobody reads what's in the letters. Not that there's really any proprietary information there, because it's just like, okay, I can understand if like they get the mail and they like read through the letter first to make sure that Kuma's not telling Bonnie something he's not supposed to, and then sealing it back up and then giving it to Bonnie. This just seems like an extra step of cruelty here, to not even let her have any communication with her father, with him sending her letters. That just seems like an extra step. So either Saturn told them to do this, and then Alpha is just taking it even further, or Alpha just doesn't like the idea of a girl having a good connection with her father because she doesn't like her own father. Or Khalifa was always the favorite and I'm going to prove myself better than her. Is like maybe what's going on here. But the letter is saying, one last thing, Bonnie. You're probably sick of me saying this, but I love you so much. I'll be sure to write again soon. And we cut inside to where we see Bonnie using one of her kind of distorted future techniques where she's made herself all big and buff, like we see her make herself later on at Egghead, or we saw earlier on during Egghead where she made herself big and buff and everything like that. Which a lot of people are like, well, maybe that's kind of like the alternate future where she ended up being like actually Kuma's biological daughter, and that's why she's more big and buff and everything like that. So that might be one of those distorted future things. And when she's just like, Goryo, let's Giorgio, I can't pronounce his name, I don't know why. Fisherman. I'm just gonna call him Fisherman because that's, I think, what it translates to. Let's spar. He's like, again, come on, Bonnie. How about some Jenga instead? And we see him like trying to play Jenga in the background. She's like, I said I want to fight. And then she starts attacking him. And then Alpha comes in and she's like, Bonnie-chan, it's time for your medicine. And then we just see it goes from like, this is gonna be a funny scene for how they do it in the anime, because like there's kind of like dust on the floor from like Bonnie and Goigo fighting, and she also just like has it like pinned around his mouth, which is just kind of funny with her hand. And then Bonnie just flips back into her little girl form, and she's just like sitting on top of Goigo, and Alifa is just like, am I imagining things? I could have sworn Bonnie was huge just now. So then she's giving Bonnie medicine. I mean, what she's giving her isn't actually going to hurt Bonnie, but still, she's like, does the medicine have to be this bitter? She's like, that just means it's working. That just means it's working. And she's just thinking in her head, as if this is just some horrid lemon-flavored placebo. So it's supposed to be a type of a weird lemon soft drink type of a thing that doesn't taste very good type of a thing. And that's always the thing when it comes to medicine that I've always had the gripe about when it comes to like cough syrup and different things like that. It's like, okay, you have all of this technology to make the medicine. Appreciate it. can you make it taste better? Because trust me, I understand adults are just like, well, kids might try to eat it, and it's just like, it's a lot easier to try to get them to take the medicine that they need to take for their own health if it tastes better. It's like they pull that with vitamins and stuff like that. Why can't they pull it with cough medicine and different things like that? It just makes it easier to give to the kids or the adults, for those of us who don't want to have to swallow down something that tastes horrible. And we look over where we see Connie talking to Gorgoro, and he's just like, hey, Granny Connie, why are we hiding Bonnie's abilities again? And she's just like, to be safe. You know what they say, a talented hawk hides its claws. I'm sure this is some type of a proverb, but I've never heard of it. But there's a lot of proverbs I haven't heard of. And then we cut back to what would be Egghead Island, that is Navy Science Division Lab 08, which is, of course, where he's building up Egghead Island. And we see that that the island has definitely improved over the past couple of months or whatever. And we see Vegapunk talking, and it is revealed that he is talking to Stussy. That's revealed here. And she's just like, amazing, Doctor. I can't believe you did it. Now he is talking to Stussy, but there's other people there that are talking to him as well. And he's just like, Vegapunk is like, yeah, now we have to lift the brain in lab using island clouds. About half of what you see here is holographic. I had planned for Punk Hazard to be like this too, you know. And we cut to where we see Stussy talking to Vegapunk, and Vegapunk has his apple head thing now. And she's like, I must admit that cut suits you. So he's just like, yeah, I feel light as a feather. And I was like, well, after so many years of having your head stuffed with knowledge and a giant brain that big, yeah, your head's going to feel a lot better once you don't have it on top of your head and ruining your neck. Compressing your spinal cord. But we see Stussy there. So this is confirming that Stussy has met Kuma in the past, because we see Kuma there as well. And they're all talking and everything like that. So Stussy, for all intents and purposes, is, yes, she's Miss Bocking's clone, but Vegapunk is, for all intents and purposes, her father. Maybe not necessarily biologically, since she's a clone, but in the sense of he's kind of the one that probably raised her and everything like that. When everything happened with Mads, and then eventually when he left Mads, he probably took Stussy with him and everything like that. And now she is just like, at this point in time, she may already be undercover as, you know, the mistress of the underworld of the Pleasure District and everything like that. Or she may just be a CP0 agent at this point in time, or somewhere within that range, since we don't know exactly when she took on those different positions and everything like that. But we get to see Stussy here, and she's just talking to Kuma, and she's like, Kuma, I heard you're going to lose your sense of individuality. I wonder which of us has the most checkered fate, the human that lacks free will or the clone that doesn't. And this is, again, we had this moment back during the chapter when it is revealed that Stussy is a clone, and we get her with her like vampire-ish whatever devil fruit type thing that she has, which still has not been explained. But where we see that, you know, Vegapunk, like his writings and stuff like that were about Stussy, and how she is still, you know, she's still human even though she's a clone. She still has the right to exist. And she is just as much human as anybody else. And we see Vegapunk kind of double down on that now, and he's just like, knock it off, Stussy, you're just as human as the rest of us. So it's like he does not consider her any less human, but Stussy, probably growing up in this regard, is probably like, I don't know how much of a human I'm considered to be. I'm a clone, and, you know, there's the woman out there that's, you know, Miss Bocking, who is, for all intents and purposes, her mother, but isn't quite the same. And, you know, this Stussy was raised by Vegapunk and raised in possibly a more caring environment, depending on stuff. Since we don't know what type of an environment that Miss Bocking grew up in. You know, she was on Rox's crew, but we don't know too much else about that. And then she was a freeloader at Mads, and eventually probably led to her having getting Weevil somehow. But we don't know exactly what else Stussy has been through. For anyone who knows that she's a clone, they may gripe against her about that and say, "Oh, you're just a clone. You're not fully human," or something like that. So Stussy's probably been through a lot there. In that regard, not nearly as much as Kuma or some of the others, but again, it's like that's still part of her backstory, and that's still part of like what she's gone through, and that doesn't lessen it compared to someone else's. And then we have Kuma, and he's like, what exactly should I expect when my personality is erased? We see him sitting on kind of like the examination table with like stuff connected to him, probably Vegapunk running tests, making sure that everything's still working properly, giving any upgrades that might be needed. And we see Vegapunk working over in the corner, and he's just like, I'll put it like this. You may already have the reputation for being totally obedient, but what would you do if you were asked to kill a child? And we get like the 3 ... from like Kuma. And he's just like, and Vegapunk's like, what it means is you'll lose not only your memories, but any empathy or humanity holding you back from fulfilling such a command. So it's like at this point in time in this flashback, Kuma would not hurt a child or kill a child even if ordered by the world government. He would not do that. What would happen is once he does have the rest of his memories and humanity and everything like that, his personality removed, where he is just nothing but this shell that we see him become, or what he is at Marineford and everything like that, and what he is when we see him at Marijois, where he's just the shell of his former self with still all the powers, but he doesn't have any of the emotions that go along with it that allow him to somewhat circumnavigate orders from the world government. And Kuma at Marineford, that was the full-on PX0, had no problem with trying to attack Ivankov, even though Ivankov was one of Kuma's best friends. And there's some other stuff there, so we kind of see that. And Vegapunk is like, that being said, you should retain some degree of free will until the process is fully complete. That'll give you roughly 1 more year. And then Kuma's like just picking up the paper and writing out another letter, and Vegapunk is just kind of smiling, like, another letter, and Kuma's like, I'll keep writing till I run out of time. Bonnie deserves to know how I feel. I want to send her a whole lifetime's worth of love before this year is over. God. Kuma is an amazing father. He's going through all of this so that way Bonnie could have been healed. He made this deal literally with a devil so his daughter could be healed of a disease he got because she was captured by people similar to the devil and put through that torture. Because Jenny was captured by that. And everything. And Kuma is just amazing. Kuma is awesome and wonderful, and this flashback just keeps adding to it. And we just see Stussy just kind of smiling, and she's just like, oh, that's so sweet, and everything like that. So just like, again, it's like Stussy is learning about Bonnie and is, kind of becoming familiar with, not just Kuma, but Bonnie. Having that whole Vegapunk bunch connection thing that I keep talking about. That Vegapunk kind of acts as this focal point to have different people connected back to him. And this may end up, seeing some of this now seated in the flashback may result in something that gets brought up when we get back to the actual story timeline, where we get back to Egghead at present, where we might see Stussy do something to protect Bonnie, because she kind of has this little bit of a connection with Bonnie because of Kuma. Or something may happen where Kuma shows up and then Stussy tries to help Kuma and everything like that, because it's like, yes, this human that has been turned into this robot that had everything taken away from it, and then this clone who is going to fully figure out that, yes, I have free will of my own and that I am my own person, type of a thing. I would like to see that happen with Stussy. I know it's not Stussy's flashback, but we get a little bit of her here. And then of course we see them talking, and Kuma's like, Bonnie's almost 9 now. I wonder how big she's gotten. And do you think she's changed a lot? And they're just like ha-haing and laughing and everything like that. And again, we see the letter. It's just like, I don't know when you'll get this letter, but happy birthday, Bonnie. I'm back at Vegapunk's lab. Things are busy around here. And everything. And then we cut to the church where we see everybody celebrating Bonnie's birthday and everything like that. And they're just like, congratulations, Bonnie, and everything like that. So we get the time frame that Bonnie is now 9. So this is a year before Luffy is going to leave. Or roughly a year or so, or within the year before Luffy is going to leave. So Luffy is still 16 at this point in time, but Bonnie is not quite 10. Or Bonnie just turned 9, I believe. Yeah. And so we see everybody celebrating. We see the fishermen. We see Connie. We see some of the older people. And then we also see a couple of young people there as well. So these are probably other people from the capital who have come and are friends of Bonnie now. And everything like that. Because we see at least 2, like maybe, or at least 1 like teenager girl. And then maybe like 3 kids. That may have actually become friends with Bonnie. I don't know if they were the ones we saw earlier on in the flashback that were calling her a vampire and attacking her in the church. Maybe they've become friends with her now because her dad's the king and everything like that. And we just see how happy Bonnie is and everything like that. And she's just like, Granny Connie made an extra special giant pizza for you. She's like, yay, I love it. And she's just like so happy and gobbling up the pizza. Again, pizza is Bonnie's favorite food. And then we cut to that night where everybody is just like so passed out from having a good time. Probably no alcohol involved, but passed out from having a good time. And again, Bonnie is like looking in the mailbox to see if there's anything. And we just see how quiet the church is. And this is probably going to be a beautifully animated scene when we get to it in the anime. But she like goes and sits on the altar and she's just like sitting there and she's like, nothing. There's still no letters. Daddy, I'm 9 now. You said you'd write. And she's just crying and everything like that. And again, it's like, it's this little girl that can keep this appearance of being happy up in front of her friends and, Connie and everything like that, for the people that she considers family and all of that. And keep up a cheery disposition in front of Alpha and everything. Keep up this cheery disposition in front of everybody. But she just wants to know that her dad loves her. And like, yeah, he said he loved her before he left, but he also said he'd write. And that's been so many months ago. And she's just like, I miss you and I really want you to write to me and everything like that. And you just like, that's going to be a hard thing to watch in the anime when they get to it. I mean, it's hard to look at now, and it's not nearly as heartbreaking as what you see with like Kuma went through with losing both of his parents and everything like that happened, and losing Ginny. But it's still, this is Bonnie, and Kuma is the only parent she's ever known. She may know that her mother's name was Ginny and a little bit about her and everything like that, but maybe not a huge amount. But Kuma was her world and she was his world, and it's this amazing connection that the two of them have that leads to Bonnie wanting to go and find him. And we see that the aftermath of that come out, or we're going to see kind of what leads to that in a moment. But we cut back to where we have, the narrator is just like, and so another half a year passed without a single letter reaching the church. And we cut to Baltigo and the Revolutionary Army headquarters on Baltigo. And we see Sabo, and we're getting this information that like Kuma came to the rescue again. And they're getting this update. And this would be before Sabo got all of his memories back and everything like that of Luffy and Ace and Goa and everything like that. But it's just like, yeah, it's just like all the other times the revolutionary forces were on the ropes. When he swooped in and to save us at the last minute. After that, he left without saying a word. If Kuma wishes not to be followed, we will respect that. We have to respect that. And we cut to where we see where the Revolutionary Army are fighting, or where certain members of the Revolutionary Army are fighting. And like we also see Kuma just like leaving in the background, and they're trying to, at least plead with him to stay one way or the other. And we see Dragon, and he's just like, I'm sure he has his reasons for keeping us in the dark. He does, but I mean, still. And again, we see these little bits where Kuma's finding a way to circumvent the orders from the world government. Since he's not always, always having to do something for them, he's allowed to go off and do some other stuff as long as it's not revealed that he's off helping the Revolutionary Army. We cut back to the church where we see Bonnie happy, and she's like, I'm all better now. Look, the stones are completely gone. I can finally go outside and everything like that. And we don't see, we see around her eye, we don't see that there's any type of a mark left or anything like that. We do know that she ends up getting the piercing there. What would be very shortly, she gets the piercing there. As a reference to her being Jewelry Bonnie and everything like that. And then we see Alpha just getting very, I don't know if angry is the right word, but she's just like, no, not a chance, Bonnie-chan. You must stay put. We've been told to keep you under close supervision until your 10th birthday. And Bonnie's like, you liar. Vegapunk said I'd be fine after a year. And that was a year ago. And, Alpha's just like, I forbid it. And we cut to where we see Connie talking with Bonnie and a bunch of the other people that are in the church. And Alpha's probably left or whatever, or at least outside doing something or whatever. And I like that this shows that, yes, Bonnie has not been alone. She's had Connie there. She's had the fishermen. She's had the other people that ended up being part of her crew. She's had other people from the village, the elderly people or other people from the kingdom. Probably Bulldog has come to visit a couple of times to see her and everything like that. And, Bonnie has friends, and she's not alone, but it's still not the same as having her father there, of having Kuma there with her. That's not quite the same. And everything. And we see Connie, and she's explaining that it's like Alpha and the others are government intelligence agents. And they're like, what? And she's like, shh, I'm whispering for a reason. She's just like, they let it slip while they were getting drinks in town. Apparently, your disease has been cured for a while now. And they're like, really? And she's like, yeah. We must be missing something. Why would they keep a perfectly healthy young girl trapped inside for another 6 months? Also, I find it hard to believe that Kuma wouldn't send a single letter. And Bonnie's like, yeah. And it's just like, yeah, Connie has, knew Kuma enough. She didn't know him very much, but she could see enough of him that, he loved Bonnie. And he would not just up and abandon her without a very, very, very good reason. And that, yeah, he would have been the one that would be sending letters. So there has to be something that's stopping it. And Connie is probably a pretty smart woman. And she's just like, I've already sorted everything out with Gyorigor and the others. Head for the port, Bonnie. Sail the seas and go find your father. And Bonnie's like, can I really go? And I was right. I hit this on the head last week when I said they're going to have it that Connie has Bonnie turn her young, and then Bonnie turns into the old version of Connie, turns old, and then they swap clothes, and then Connie stays at the church, and then Bonnie leaves under the guise of being Connie. And I was correct. I mean, a lot of people probably said the same thing, so that's not really like a big deal, but it's just like, yay, I was right. And such. So they pull that switcheroo, and we see Bonnie leaving the church as Connie. So this explains why she has her hat and everything like that, and all of that. And we see them, and Connie has explained to Bonnie that Gyorigoi and the rest aren't your average fishermen. They're a strong pack of hooligans. I'm sure the pirates and the sea beasts will turn tail once they see them in action. They'll be there to help you find Kuma. And we see Connie leaving, and Alpha's just like, oh, well, I'll see ya, take care, and everything like that. And Bonnie's able to leave. And we see her walking through with this little tiny this suitcase that's just the same size of her as an old woman. And they're just going through, and she's like, so this is the outside world. There's so much dirt and grass. Look at the sky. There's the sun. And if we are correct in our assumption that Kuma has been teaching Bonnie about Nika for a very long time now, that this is Bonnie doesn't have any other memories of being out in the sun. I mean, when she was a baby with Kuma, she was probably out in the sun for a good chunk of the time before everything happened, where the sapphire scale started to develop, and then they kept her inside the church and everything, with all the windows boarded up. But, this is the first time in her memory that Bonnie is being able to be outside and actually see and experience the sun and everything. So I love that. And the fact that she has to, like, not just act all happy instantly as soon as she's outside, means that she understands the gravity of what's going on, with the fact that she can't reveal that she's actually Bonnie while this is happening. And we look at the church and we see that they've, like, pulled a couple of the boards off the window, and they're all, like, looking out the window at Bonnie as she's leaving. They're like, Bonnie's actually walking outside. It's a miracle. There really is a God. I never thought I'd see the day. So it's just like, they're all just so happy that Bonnie finally gets to go out into the sun and everything like that. And Bonnie's made her way to the port, and she's turned back into her young self. And they're like, Bonnie, over here. Goy, tots, potato. Of course, her crew have food names, of course. They're like, look, everyone, I'm really outside. And she's just, like, running toward them and everything like that. And they have, like, their ship already, and they say that they make it based off of a pizza and everything like that. So it's not quite, I believe it's the Bonnie Margareta or whatever was the name of the ship. I don't remember the exact name of what Bonnie's ship was. But it's not quite that exact ship, but it is similar in its design. And again, it's based off of pizza, which is, of course, Bonnie's favorite food. So that's what they're going with there and everything. And we cut back to the church where we have Alpha shouting. It's just like, where's Bonnie? I just saw the Queen Dowager outside. They're like, what the hell is going on? And we see her looking down at Connie, who has now been turned old again, is in Bonnie's clothing and everything like that. She's like, it's me, Bonnie. And it's just like, you lying old prune. And we cut out and we see, and again, we cut out to where we see that the ship has set sail. And they're like, yeah, we made it look like a pizza for you. And Bonnie's like, oh, happy and everything like that. We do see what looks like a fish with, the crossbones behind it. So that might have been, like, Bonnie's original one. And then we know that it gets changed into, like, the Bonnie's face with, I think, pizza a little bit behind it. And then, like, a bite taken out of it or something like that, as Bonnie's Jolly Roger. And now the fact that they're just the Bonnie pirates, as opposed to, like, I don't know, the jewelry pirates or, like, the pizza pirates would have been good there as well, in that regard. Just kind of adds to the fact that it's like, well, Bonnie was, like, 10, or not even 10 when, like, that happened, and she, and the crew set sail and everything like that. So it's just like, they get a little bit of leeway for not having a very original name. But then we cut to where we have Alpha chasing after them, and she's just like, hold it right there. And they're just like, oh no, Alpha found us. And it's just like, you think you can get away from me? I'll beat you to within an inch of your life. Enough of this charade. I'll keep you chained up day and night. That'll make things much easier. And she's just, like, running towards him, and she's using Geppo to fly through the sky and everything like that. And Goy is just like, she's flying towards us. That's one of the 6 powers. How do you know that? How do you know that? I don't know. And it was just like, we see Alpha is just like, I was ordered to eliminate any... What is it? I was ordered to eliminate any accomplices. Sorry. It's just like, the word is not clicking in my head. And we see Bonnie remembering when she was talking to her dad about Nika. And she's like, hey, Daddy, what did Nika look like? And he's just like, no one knows. And Bonnie jumps into the air and activates her distorted future. And they're just like, Bonnie! And she's gotten the big and buff, and, like, her arms kind of, like, stretching the way that Luffy's does. When he's using, one of his, like, gear third or whatever it is where everything gets big. And he's just like, but they say his body was all rubbery, and there was no limit to what he could do in a fight. And she's just like, a future where, give me a Nika-ish future. So she's like, got the big, strong arm and everything like that, and she just, like, punches Alpha. And she falls, and Alpha just falls to the ground or into the water. Alpha might be dead. Khalifa might be down a sister. But they may have not gotten along at all anyway, so I don't know. And they're just like, the government would soon receive word that their hostage, Bonnie, escaped to find her father. And and we see her crew smiling and everything like that and cheering for her and everything, and we see Bonnie smiling again, and kind of probably reverting a little bit to like the usual form that we see her in, that's like the 20-something-year-old form. And it's just like Luffy and the others, her vessel would gain fame. It would go from a humble fishing boat to a infamous pirate ship in the new era. And we have the comment, a young girl heading for the future. And I mean, we kind of figured that part of the flashback was going to end with like possibly seeing Bonnie leaving Sorbet to head out on her journey to find her father. And of course, unless we get something else here where we have, in the next part of the flashback, in the next chapter, or we see probably a little bit more with Kuma and then Bonnie maybe, there might be something where we see Bonnie reading more about Kuma and getting more of that type of information. Maybe she'll get lucky and maybe one of Kuma's letters will get delivered to her. I don't know. That's a possibility. We'll see. But we do know that part of this gets referenced to with the fact that when Bonnie gets captured by Blackbeard later and then subsequently by Akainu, that he's like, a shiver ran down our spines when you escaped, because they lost their leverage in order to control Kuma. And they may not have necessarily told Kuma right away that Bonnie escaped. I don't know why they would. But he would have eventually seen her bounty poster. And maybe by that point in time, when he did finally see her wanted poster, which we have not seen yet, there's like mock-up versions of her poster, but I don't think we've actually seen her bounty poster. We know that her bounty when she was at Sabaody was over 100 million because she was one of the supernova, but we haven't seen her bounty poster. And her bounty poster might be very similar to what Sanji's was, where it was only alive, as opposed to, the others that are dead or alive. So we might get something like that where that gets revealed. Hi, pretty girl Brenda. I'm almost done. So we might get something like that where Bonnie has that type of a poster that it's just like, oh yes, it was only alive, and that's why they wanted her, because then they can use her as leverage to control Kuma to a degree. Although by the time everything happens at Sabaody, he's had so much of his humanity taken away. That just adds even more to the fact that like Kuma was on Sabaody with Bonnie, and they may not have been able to actually interact with each other as much as he may have wanted to. That may have been something that would have resulted in more danger to Bonnie. Possibly. I'm not sure. We'll have to wait and see. I would like to get that part of the flashback a little bit more from Bonnie's point of view for what happened at Sabaody, for when she sees all of the pacifistas showing up there, particularly with Sentomaru, who she knows, and Kizaru, who she knows. So we'll see what happens with that. We do have break next week. And then the week after that, I think... Well, the week after that would kind of line up with Christmas, so we may have like a 2-week break. Not sure. We might get a chapter the week of Christmas, maybe, depending on stuff, and then we'll have New Year's after that, so it might be break, Christmas, chapter, break, whatever it ends up being, we'll see. Yeah, so we'll see what happens there. So I thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope you have a nice rest of your day. Bye.